When you enter the world of work and you become a proper adult, there are so many things to try and think about and get your head around, like how to wake up early, how to select the right internet provider, and how to manage your money. When I first started working, having money come into my bank account was very exciting, but at the same time it was also like, what do I do with this? Can I spend it all, or do I need to start saving it? What do I actually do? Now, thankfully, in the prior years at university, I had formed some healthy habits, but I wasn't really sure what the best way of managing my money was. So since then, I've managed to develop and kind of learn 3 pretty healthy habits, I think, that will allow you to also have really healthy finances. So listen up and we'll get into them right now. Hello everyone, if you don't yet know who I am, my name is James. I'm going to try and condense my 3 habits, which are investing, budgeting, and financial curiosity, into as practical tips as I can possibly manage for you. In any good business, government, household, or charity, you have to know how much money you have coming in and how much money you expect to have going out, because this is fundamental to how you plan your life, what you can actually do, what house you can live in, what holidays you can go on, what charities you want to give to, and how much you want to give. It's absolutely fundamental. And if you're going into life without knowing how much you have coming in versus how much you're expecting to spend, then unfortunately you're probably setting yourself up for failure and a lot of stress down the line. So the first habit, which I've already mentioned, is budgeting. And this is something that I developed early on at university. In the uni days, it was a lot simpler, didn't have a lot of things going out, also didn't have a lot of money coming in, but it was really helpful that I started at this early stage. So if you are at uni, definitely start now. And I mention this because when you go into the real world, the working world, the stuff that you have to spend money on goes up a lot. The amount of stuff and probably the cost of it as well. There is bills, food, clothes, tax, more bills, gifts, knickknacks, even more bills, holidays, meals out, somehow even more bills, treats, cars, and of course, bills. And the way I recommend you manage your money and all those bills is this amazing spreadsheet here, which is from the Money Saving Experts, and it's a free Excel spreadsheet that you can download. And I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail here because it's fairly self-explanatory. Literally every page has got a step-by-step instruction, but I will give you the broad brush strokes right now. So step 1 is to click on the What Do You Earn page right here, which is, again, super simple. You just put in what it is that you earn. I usually just put in a yearly salary, and I obviously will account for tax or take the tax off and like student finance and stuff like that off initially. If you're expecting to get any sort of other form of income, like from, I don't know, your family members at all, for whatever reason, you can include that here as well, and it will just calculate basically how much you have coming in. So that's the What Do You Earn tab. Next is the What Do You Spend tab. Now this is, again, super self-explanatory. I just recommend work your way through every single section of this spreadsheet. And what's really helpful about it is it usually helps you to think about stuff that you forget you need to spend money on, whether that be, I don't know, a TV license, or I know my iCloud subscription, something like that. It will take you through all the possible areas you could spend money. And then you can just allocate a certain amount that you expect to be needing to spend that year. And again, one of the sort of helpful tools with this is that you've got your sort of weekly, monthly, yearly, so you can, you know, if it's a one-off expense, I know a year-long subscription to something, you can put it in the yearly, if it's monthly, and so on and so on. And then ultimately what it will do is it will tot up how much you're planning to spend. You can also add in part C the monthly desired amount that you want there. So that can be for like future planning of how much you would like to be able to spend on your holidays and things like that. I'm just going to quickly fill out 1 or 2 bits in here just to show you the next page, as it will make more sense once I've put some information in. Okay, so the next tab is purely just a summary of those numbers you put in a nice pie chart format. It can just be helpful just to visualize, oh, I didn't realize how much I was spending on home or shopping. Maybe I should cut down on X, Y, and Z. And the purpose of this is purely to be able to view and be like, that is the portfolio of what I'm planning to spend this year. And then you can kind of make any kind of changes that you need to. And then the final page is super simple. It's just really an indication of how much do I spend versus how much do I earn? Am I effectively planning to be overspent or underspent? So in this scenario, I've got plenty of income compared to the planned amount of expenditure. That's purely because I made all the numbers up. But that shows you an illustration of why it's super helpful. And honestly, I use this tool all the time. So I would highly, highly recommend you give it a go. If you want to download it, I'll put a link in the description to the Money Saving Expert website. When I first started earning money and I actually had a decent amount in my bank account, certainly more than at university, I actually felt a little bit stressed about the fact that it was just sitting there and that I wasn't making the most of investing. But at the time, investing just sounded quite scary to me. That was until I watched Ali Abdul's video on Beginner's Guide to Investing. He very simply broke down why investing is a good thing. And to summarize it in very simple terms, the sooner you start, the better, due to a thing called compound interest. In other words, your money will start to grow and build as you leave it for longer and longer, and it will compound until it hopefully grows into a fairly large sum. And he explained that the S&P 500, which is made up of the 500 largest companies in the US, and it's an index fund, is a relatively safe place to start investing. However, it is still the stock market, which means that it can go down. For example, the 2008 financial crash. However, if you were to leave your money for at least 5, maybe 10 years, you can almost guarantee it would have gone up. And I'm not just saying that, you just have to look at the past 20, 30, 40 years of the S&P 500 to see how it has grown. The only scenario where you might lose all of your money would be if the US just completely collapsed and Armageddon took over. And I think at that point you probably have bigger issues to worry about than your future retirement fund. If you're in the UK, I think a great place to start is a stocks and shares lifetime ISA. And effectively what this is it's an account, a savings account, investing account that allows you to save either for your first home or to save for retirement. Now the reason why it's so great is that for every penny that you put in, up to £4,000 in a financial year, the government will top up your account by 25% of that value you just put in. So let's say I put in £4,000, they then give me an extra £1,000 on top of that. And even better, because it is a stocks and shares ISA, you can get non-stocks and shares ISAs and they're a bit safer. But because it's a stocks and shares ISA, that £5,000 that we now have then goes into the stock market and it will grow again by 8%. So I would have made an additional £400. So literally by putting in £4,000, you make immediately another £1,400. And obviously this is the same no matter how much you put in. If you put in 100 quid, they then give you 25 quid and you make interest on that as well. If you don't want to get a ISA, because there are quite a few caveats with how you can use it, and I would make sure you research that separately before you do go ahead. You could get something called a stocks and shares ISA, which is just a standard ISA account. It's got less rules and regulations around how you can use it, and you can still get the benefit of being able to invest in the stock market. You won't get that added benefit of 25% from the government though. If you're in the US, then I believe a similar thing to an ISA is a Roth IRA. I don't know much about them, but I'd suggest looking there first. And of course, hopefully you're aware that the benefit of an ISA or a LISA is that you can earn interest tax-free up to a certain limit, which is why they're so great for investing. So to summarize, in that first year when I started earning money, I went to a place called Hargreaves and Lansdown. They're not the only provider of accounts, but that's just where I went. I opened a stocks and shares lifetime ISA. I chucked as much money as I had into it, and then over the years I'd keep topping it up. And that account is part of the reason why my wife and I have been able to buy this lovely house that we live in now. So I hope this might give you the kick up the bum to get started with investing if you've not tried it yet or you're a bit scared about it. Honestly, I'd just say start small if you're scared. There are a lot of other different avenues you can get into it, but it is a really helpful, good thing to do, and the earlier you start, the better. And the final thing I wanted to talk about is called financial curiosity. Less obvious, I think, than budgeting and investing, but effectively it's just a fancy way of saying keep learning stuff about money and finances and investing. Chat to your friends, read books, listen to podcasts, go on these amazing websites like Money Saving Expert and just try and gather as much knowledge as you can. You will never probably have the perfect financial situation, and so all you can do is just be curious as to how you could do things differently or better. So that's all I'd just say is be curious. One thing at this point that I just want to caution you with is don't allow comparison to creep in. I think it's all too easy to start looking at your friends, your family, or people on the internet like me, and look at them and be like, oh gosh, they've got it all figured out. Like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm not being very smart, savvy with my finances. We all feel like that at times, so that's very, very normal. And all I could say to you again is just to be curious. For example, I'm making a video about this right now, which is great, but me and my wife, we have just recently been meeting with a financial advisor to be like, what do we do? We bought a house now, great, but what's next? How do we think about investing, pensions, all this kind of boring but important stuff? So all that to say is be curious and don't allow yourself to keep comparing yourself to other people. One of the ways you could be curious, I feel a bit cheeky saying this, but feel free to subscribe to this YouTube channel because that's the kind of stuff that I like to talk about and share is life wisdom around being a young professional, whether it be habits, food, or productivity. Those are kind of the areas that I like to talk about a bit. So feel free to subscribe if you would like to, but there's no pressure. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and as always, have a great day, and I'll see you in the next video.